right, guys. So we're on episode number 4 from the Aries Nutrition podcast with the legend, John Meadows, Mountain Dog, Mr. Granite himself. So before we get started, John, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. For me, I'm like one of your biggest fans. I'm like a little kid whenever I get to interview people like you. So I'm very excited. And again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, man, to jump on.
Well, happy Friday, and it's my pleasure to be here. And I really think I should be the one thanking you for all the support that you've given Granite and everything that you're doing. So thank you.
Of course, John. And you know what? The biggest thing is it's at the end of the day, it's a working unity together, right? You have always done so much in the industry, and I'm referring to like coaching, training. I mean, you're looked up by everybody. So you always give back. So it's kind of like, we're helping each other at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I love to support the brand because I'm supporting you because I believe in everything that you do and I believe in the brand and I want people to know about it. And I want people to know who John Meadows is. Guys, when I met John, when I brought him over, all he wanted to talk about is football. And I'm like, never watching football. So I'm like, all right, let me try to get this conversation going. But I remember, when you came over last year, and thank you again so much. Everybody got to meet you. I mean, I saw you spending like 15 to 20 minutes talking to individuals. It wasn't like a quick, you don't see that very often when individuals, especially in your position, take so much time for all of us to kind of just spend our time. And I remember seeing you speaking to the customers when I had my anniversary event. And then I remember when, so guys, in case you didn't know, so last year when John came in for anniversary, I picked him up from the airport. Okay, this guy, the first thing he wants to do is train. So I figured he wanted to get something to eat first and stop by the hotel. He's like, no, we're going to the hotel. We're going right to the gym. We're training. So we stopped to the gym. We had a great workout. And I remember literally after that workout, the next day we had the event. And I remember you flew back. And the first thing I texted you is like, hey, John, what program from all your programs do you recommend? And I remember you told me, and then John, I mean, you were like, let me give you a discount code. I'm like, no, John, I'm going to support you with exactly what the program costs because I want to use it. And I've been using a lot of your programs ever since. And I'm a huge fan because I remember like when I bought the Colossus program, it was like half of the program. It was such unique angles that I never hit before. And I remember the definition and how much my body was changing was so different than what I'm used to. And it wasn't anything from the way I used to be training. So again, this is just a big runaround about John, because I'm like a big fan. But all right, I want everybody to know John is. Okay, so the best way to do that is, John, basically, you've done so much in a career. Let everybody know, how did John start? He probably went through high school. I'm sure you played football because you're a football fan. How you went through your career, how'd you change into another direction? And then, you did so much with training and you're such a legend through all, whatever, all the pros always coming to you. When did it come to that point where it was like, holy shit, that's the Mountain Dog. I need to go see him. Just let us all know, man.
Well, so I got started at a real young age. I started training when I was either 11 or 12. I can't quite remember, but I do remember competing when I was 13.
Okay.
So even at that age in junior high school, I was wanting to be a bodybuilder. Like at the time I was getting Muscle and Fitness. I was looking in the magazines. I was reading it cover to cover. I was really fascinated by the kinesiology section, all the muscle insertions and origins and nerve innervations. I just found that fascinating. And I continued to weight train to support the sports that I was in. You're right. I did play football. I ran track, wrestled for a period of time. And you're right. I love football. At one point, I woke up and realized that I was probably a little too slow to be a running back in the NFL. So I thought I should just stick to bodybuilding. And, when I was 19, I won my first show as a teenager. There was a show here in Ohio the Teenage Mr. Cincinnati. Mr. Cincinnati used to be a massive show here. It was really, really high level. And then when I was 20, I won every show in Ohio in the men's classes. Not every show, but all the ones I did. And then I was 21. And I was like, man, this is going to be easy to get a pro card.
Yeah.
Like, I was winning all the local stuff. I was winning regional stuff. And I thought at the time, Patrick, I was like, man, this is going to be easy. I'm really good. And what happened was then I went to the nationals, and I figured out real quickly I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Right?
It's funny how a lot of people have a rude awakening sometimes at the nationals, man. It really is.
Yeah, I got lit up. So I went to the nationals in 1998, and there were 42 guys in my class, if I remember right. And at the time, it was a big deal to make the top 15.
Yes, I remember that.
It was a huge deal. Now it's like, it's not a big deal at all, but it was a very big deal to make top 15. And I didn't make the top 15, and I thought, man, I should have been in the top 15. And so my wife had taken pictures. Back then, it was probably with a Polaroid. I don't know. But so she shows me the pictures once we get them, and I'm looking at the pictures, and I'm like, man, I probably shouldn't even have been in the top 25 if they would have counted 25. I got my butt kicked. So I went back to the drawing board. I continued to work hard. I always had the work ethic. I always had a very inquisitive mind. And I never accepted like poor results. I just never accepted it. You know how some people say, well, my X just won't grow. I never accepted that. I always tried to outsmart the issues that I had. You know, like I had a poor back when I first started. And then at the end of my career, I actually had a pretty good back. Mm-hmm. So I just continue to work to correct my weaknesses, really focused on getting better. And, you know, I had the best compliment. There was a guy here, he was in the Mr. American contest in the early 70s, actually. And he actually beat Lee Haney one year in the Teenage Nationals.
Oh, wow.
Might have been the Teenage Mr. America. But Jim had done a lot of work with Mike Francois. Of course, Mike is the best bodybuilder to ever come out of Columbus here where I'm at. Mike was phenomenal. And Jim, somebody who I really respect, he said, man, I wish I had a training partner like you. When I was your age, or when I was younger, I've never met anybody who was so creative in the gym.
Right.
So I always had kind of that creativity, and I could see things that I think some people probably just couldn't see. But I continued to get better. I actually came back the following year at the 99 Mr. USA, and I got fourth as still a no-name. So I went as a light heavyweight. I was a light heavyweight at the 1998 Nationals. And 1999, I came back better as a heavyweight. And I was the lightest heavyweight in the whole class. I think I was 207. I think I was 207 pounds.
It's like right in the middle.
And I got fourth, you know, and people were like, who's this ripped kid? This kid's shredded out of his mind. I got fourth.
Yeah.
So Patrick, I thought, okay, now I got it. Now this is going to be easy. All right. That was 1999. So 2000, I come back. I think I got it this year. I'm eighth. You know, I ran into this little dude named Branch Warren, right?
Oh, the little guy, right?
And Troy Alvis came in. He kicked my butt. So I ran into some really good competition that year. And I struggled. I just couldn't get over the hump. And but I stuck with it in 2005. As you know, I had a medical condition. I actually lost my entire large intestine, my colon, in 2005 due to a very rare disease I had. And again, it was like, okay, well, now it's probably over. But I kept fighting, you know. I just came back cautiously, training. And about a year and a half later, I was like, wow, my muscle has actually come back. My stomach doesn't look very good from all the scars and all the surgeries I had, but everything else looks pretty good. So Patrick, I just stuck with it. I worked my way back up to a second place at a pro qualifier. Then the next year I got second place. And the third year I finally won my pro card, and it was in 2015. So
wow. So that's like almost 16 years you were.
So yeah, so think about that. You know, that was a lot of fighting, but you know, I had that dream from a young age, from age 12 to 13, and I never gave up on it. And I will tell you along the way that there were many, many, many days where I woke up and said, I just don't have the genetics. I knew I had the work ethic and the intelligence. I knew that. Yeah. But I really questioned my genetics. Like maybe I just don't, and I still don't have a good structure, right? So maybe I just don't have the structure to be a good pro. Well, once I got my pro card, it was like, okay, I'm not waiting. I'm jumping. So 2 weeks later, I was in a pro show. I got fifth. And then 2 weeks after that, I came back for the Tampa Pro Show where there were two guys who was in the Mr. Olympia there before. I beat both of them. And I got third
Oh, wow.
in the Tampa Pro. And then I came back San Antonio another couple weeks after that, and I got fifth in that pro show. So my first three pro shows, I placed in all of them. And so, people see my career now and they, maybe they don't see what I went through, but it was a lot of challenges, man. It was a lot of sticking with it.
Yeah.
And, the old adage of believe in yourself. Like I lived that, I had to live that. And the other thing was I had good people around me that supported me too. So I didn't have people around me telling me I was dumb or give up. I didn't have those people. I had people that were saying, work harder and work smarter, just keep getting better. So I know a
Yeah.
lot of people don't necessarily have that support structure. Now, don't get me wrong. They weren't saying, John, you should be Mr. Olympia. That's not the case. But I had guys like, one of my mentors, Dave Tate, is a really good friend of mine. He's very honest. He was like, no, I think you can be a pro, but you got to get better. Like, you have to get better. So it wasn't just to stroke your ego, you're great. It was don't give up. Keep
Right.
working.
Keep working harder.
Fighting. Yeah. So I'm really glad I've been blessed to have really good friends with me my entire life. As you probably know, I didn't really have a mom or a dad, and so but I have had some awesome people around me that made all the difference in the world. So, I like to give them as much credit because if I didn't have that support structure, who knows what would have happened.
I agree. It takes a lot, man. I mean, we, just having a positive structure around us. And I think a lot of it has to go to is the individuals that were always giving you support, they were successful and wanted you to be successful also. It was kind of like give the positivity back. I think in my personal experiences, and I always tell this to people, if there's somebody in your life that's kind of giving a little bit of negativity off, that I don't think they really want you to succeed, because at the end of the day, no matter how difficult something is, there can always be a positive light to put on it, even if it means taking a different route within whatever you're doing. So that's huge. And was there any other pros that were also in your corner during that time, like any other big names, or is it kind of you were just going through everything? Because I assume during that time you were also, I think you worked for the bank, you were in a corporate side, and then you were doing the training on the side as well, correct?
Oh, it was crazy. So I worked as a project manager at JP Morgan Chase, and I was running.
Yes, that's what it is.
I was running huge projects. I mean, huge projects, $5-10 million projects.
Yeah.
And I did that. I worked in the bank all the way until 2012, but I was coaching people. I mean, for 10 years, I was at the bank for 10 years, and I was coaching people the entire 10 years I was at the bank. So I would get home, and then I had my clients that I worked with. And at that time, I was working with quite a bit of pros. There were quite a few pros I was working with. And they were in my corner. And it's funny because a lot of the pros I was working with, they were like, John, I'm a pro. I know what the pros look like. And I'm telling you, you can be competitive with these guys.
Yeah.
But when you're an amateur and you hear that, it's like, well, but I'm an amateur. So I hear you and it makes me feel good, kind of, but I'm not a pro.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
So man, when I turned pro and I jumped right in those shows, they were like, I told you can compete with these guys. And so it was pretty cool.
Isn't that crazy? It is. I mean, you put so many years just to actually get the pro card, and then right away you were placing up top. So I'm sure that must have been a very satisfying feeling. Kind of like that cake after the dinner where it's like, man, I put all this hard work and I got my veggies in, and now I get to enjoy. And so that's good, man. That's because a lot of times that doesn't happen to people. They might become pro and then it kind of just fizzle away. But for you to do well, it means that you sure never gave up and you didn't, and just kept pushing through for sure.
Well, you know what's funny? It's our mindset. So like my goal, I remember, was just to be a pro and compete in a pro show. I always, like you try to bargain with God, right? You're like,
yes,
okay, God, I'll be a really good person this year if you'll just help me turn pro, so I can just do one pro show. So
when you're praying, I know what you mean.
I'm like trying to bargain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I turned pro and I placed those 3 shows, I was like, hey God, I want to upgrade my request. I'd love to do I'd love to do the Arnold Classic. so so
And you
then
did, and
yeah,
you did.
so then I did Arnold Classic, and then I was like, he got I'd love to do the Mr. Olympia. And I think that's the point where God said, hey, you've had it, like, I've given you
We're
enough,
good. We're
man.
gonna take a little break right now.
Like, you need to chill out, dude.
Now, you said you were training a lot of pros. When did that switch? Because you don't just train pros for out of nowhere. Where did it go from the point where you were just training? Because did you first start training like through a gym facility as an independent or as a contractor trainer? And then from what point did it switch to I'm training amateurs to wow, I got pros coming and that I'm training?
Well, so I used to be a trainer at World Gym when I was in college. And I got to tell you, I don't want to say it was a bad experience. It just wasn't for me. And the
Hmm.
reason why it wasn't for me was because the clientele at the time, they just weren't real motivated. So here I am, super motivated. I wanted the best results for them.
And you're getting frustrated a little bit,
And I
probably.
got every day was frustration. How'd you eat today? Well, all I had was a bagel for breakfast. That's all I've had all day. Or, that's how. And
Yeah.
so I would get frustrated because I wanted the people to do better. And I just, it's probably just a weakness I have. I just really try to connect with people and for them to do well. So I eventually just said, you know what, this is draining me. And like I would start training people early in the morning, then I'd go to some classes, then I'd come back and train some more people, and then I had to train. So when it
Yeah.
came time for my own workout, I was mentally drained.
Right.
And I was like, you know what, like I'm pouring all this mental energy into these people and it's draining me and it's hurting my own training. And I still really want to be a pro. So I quit training
Yeah.
people. And that's actually what put me on a different path to the corporate world. But I want to give a lot of credit to Antoine Vaillant. You guys probably all know him, right?
Yes.
So Antoine's been a friend of mine for a long time. So Antoine had known about me and we had talked. And Antoine made a couple trips here from Canada to train with me. And we started working together and he started doing really, really well. And he won his pro card at nationals. He looked phenomenal. And he was a guy who was really kind of the catalyst that got my name out there on the kind of the pro level because he turned pro. So
Gotcha.
people were like, so a lot of the amateurs were like, wow, maybe this guy can help me turn pro. So I started working with a lot of really good people. And then the pros started seeing, oh wow, man, these amateurs are doing really well. So then I had, one pro, then another pro, then another pro. And then it just kind of built up from there.
Build itself from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned earlier that you felt like it could have been possibly a weakness about how you were being frustrated when people weren't giving their all. I don't think it's because of weakness. I think it has to do with your character of hard work. So, because I remember I used to, so when I was part-time training, there was times when I used to get frustrated and I was like, I can't do this just because it's like they're showing up every day. They're only putting a little bit, but they want so much more the results. And it's kind of like you look back at yourself and you're like, well, I'm putting this hard work, when I put everything into the training, into the eating, and you kind of like expect the same thing from the clients. So I don't think it's a weakness. I think it just has to do with you. Like, I think if your hard work and your dedication and how strict you were not there all the time, I think you would be more susceptible to going, well, it's okay, you had the bagel today, we'll just start fresh the next day. But you can't, because in reality you're like, no, you can't do that. Like we got to like, what are you doing? Like you like, you want to yell but you don't want to yell, but at the same time you're like, no no, because
Yeah.
if you just had a bagel and didn't have any meals, like you would be stressed out the whole day, but like, I just failed. Like you would
Yeah.
just go, because I remember the days when, say my plan falls completely off, I feel like I committed a crime. Like I just completely failed myself, and what am I going to do? So I think that what a lot has to do with your character, and it, yeah, and like how you mentioned, like it usually takes, when you have like somebody that turns pro and so forth, and the work that you put into them shows, and then so forth. Like that water wave kind of keeps coming with everybody else coming to you, and you're able to repeat that process. It makes sense why, you know, you are who you are, how you are a legend in a training thing. And like I said, I mean, I trained with you once. I use your programs, and that's just from that part. Like, yeah, there's no hiding it. Like even myself, like I had, you know, customers that came through the store and they would ask them for different training programs. I'm like, look, invest in John Meadows' program. And I had a couple that invested, and they returned like a week, 2 weeks later, and they're like, holy shit, I feel everything sore. I didn't even know there was these angles here and there, and they were so satisfied. So it speaks a lot. Speaks a lot about you, for sure, man, for sure. So the other thing I want to touch base with you is bodybuilding aspect. So you went, when you finished the Arnold, did you, and you competed in the Arnold, did you do any more shows after that?
Oh, check this
Or did
out.
you,
So,
go ahead.
so that was in like late February, early March. There was a string of shows in May, June, July timeframe.
Okay.
There were there were 5 shows in 7 weeks, and I did all 5 of them. So I remember I went to, and I did the Toronto Pro, and I had a really hard time making weight because I did the 212 class. I remember I literally I went without eating all day. I remember sweating all day. Shout out to my buddy Julian Jeffrey, my Canadian friend. He made sure I didn't die. He kept an eye on me. And then I had, I want to say I had a 2-week break, and then I went to Alaska. And Alaska, the weigh-in was earlier in the day before. So I had to struggle to make weight, but I had longer to eat afterwards. Like the show in Canada, it was late at night, and then I had to be on stage the next morning.
Oh, it's a small window.
It's a small window for someone who has to lose so much weight to make that weight class. So in Alaska, I had a little more time. So I placed, and I did very well in Alaska. So I was very excited. The judges said, you need to go to Texas next week. So I got on a plane, and I went to Texas. And I placed in Texas. And I did very well in Texas. So I was excited. And then they were like, okay, you need to go to Chicago. And so I went to Chicago, but the weigh-in was really late again. So I didn't weigh in until it was late at night. I went all day suffering. The show was the next morning. So now I dropped out of the first call out into the second call out again. And then there was another show the week after that. It was in Charlotte, North Carolina. So a decent weigh-in time. I'm back in the first call out. So I did those 5 shows in a span of 7 weeks.
Wow.
And every single one I did, I had to go crazy to make weight the night before or the day before.
You're like Kevin Levrone. I remember when I spoke to Kevin Levrone one time, he was telling me he was doing like shows back and forth. And then a lot of guys in the 90s, especially in the 90s during the Kevin time, Ronnie Coleman time, it was always like the same guys, but they were just doing shows left and right.
Yeah.
Like I'll do like 1 or 2 shows a year, and I'm like, forget this. And then you're going back week to week. So God, I could just imagine how rough that was.
Well,
especially the making weight though.
The hard part was the weight, but honestly, I was so excited to just be a pro and be competing that it was very positive for me too. So was it hard? Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of people who would have been able to do that. But it didn't feel hard at the time. You know, kind of like, it's like when you get in a situation and you're in it, and if you're in it for a long time, like it almost normalizes. It just becomes normal.
Yes.
And it was like normal. It's like, okay, the show's over. I'm going to have dinner. Sunday, I'm going to have some fun. Monday, I'm going to be back up to 221. Friday, I'm going to be back down to 217 when I wake up, maybe 219, and then I'm going to have to sweat. It's like it was just normal for me to do that. Okay, Friday, I'm going to be miserable all day, but I know it's coming. You know.
Now, did you have a hard time? Yeah, it's like a normal. So it's kind of like you just go with the regiment, and it's like normal life. When you had to drop the weight, Did you have any of the shows where you didn't do that well? Was it a hard time, the refilling aspect, when you were trying to recarbohydrate and refill some of that glycogen storage, basically to come up full? Were you having a hard time? The window wasn't like big enough and just couldn't store the carbs within the muscles fast enough?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you can get your weight back. Like you can eat and gain the weight back, but it
Hmm.
doesn't look the same. There's a
Right,
different
right.
look to the muscle. And, I looked really good at 220 or 221. And what I looked like at 212 wasn't the same look. It was more of a beat up look
Yeah.
where when I'm
Flat
220,
or just beat up?
I don't even want to say flat even. Yeah, well, there was a flat aspect to it too. There definitely was a flat aspect to it too, because I definitely lost some quad size, and I have really good quads, but they would
Yeah.
even come down some. I'll give you an example. Like if you look at Flex Lewis, not the last Olympia he won, but the ones before that,
Yes.
he's got like a little bit of a flat look to his chest and his quads even.
Hmm.
Now I know what Flex looks like at 225, and he looks amazing.
Hmm.
So
He looks
people
like
are
he's
seeing him.
250.
Well, so people
He
see
looks.
him at 212 and they're like, well, he doesn't quite look right. And I've been in his shoes. I know that depleted look when I see it.
Hmm.
Now, that's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for him at the Olympia, because I know what he looks like when he's not depleted, and he is
Yeah.
going to tear people up. Like people have no clue how good he is.
Do you think it'll be him and Phil?
I
That's
think
the
him, Phil,
top
and
two.
Brandon are the top three. Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see Flex.
Yeah.
Like, because there's, again, like you were mentioning, there's the pictures of Flex when he's like around that weight, where it's just like, what is
Amazing.
that? Like,
Yeah.
what is that? And then it's so crazy just to cut that 10 pounds. It's like he has like this small window where he's cuts to make the weigh in and looks like he's shriveled, and then hits the stage. And there's certain points where he nails it. And there were certain shows where it was there, but like maybe the quad size was a little bit less and so
Sometimes a little
forth.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, like I remember the
Yeah.
one show he did with, I think it was Hadi
Yeah.
from Iran, and then
Right.
he beat Hadi, but Hadi on certain shots was like full, like
Yeah.
he looked overpowering. And then when I was looking at Flex, I'm like, that's not the regular Flex, because the regular Flex is like unreal.
Yeah, he is unreal, and I think they're looking at Flex, like the people who don't believe in him, they're looking at the 212 version. I'm just like,
Hmm.
no, you have no idea. Like I can show you a picture of my 212 version, and it can't touch my 220 version. And Flex
Hmm.
really, I mean, he's probably going to be 225 to 230, and
Yeah.
he's going to be
He,
just ripped out of his mind at that weight,
yes.
because he was before. He was ripped out of his mind at 222, 223 already.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. I think a lot of Flex. I think he's a great guy, so I'm super excited about that.
I think it's gonna be interesting because Phil will come in round, like his muscle bellies will be so round, and again, this is my perception. I think Phil will come in like his usual, huge round belly muscles, like an action figure, and then Flex will be next to him, size wise, massive, but more. I think he'll have more of a grainier, round
Details.
muscle. Yeah, like that's what I'm thinking. Where it's went up, but I think it'll be exciting because I think without Flex, kind of Brendan versus Phil. Brendan's awesome, but I think Phil could beat him on some of the shots just because of his belly muscles. So to see Flex up there, it's really going to be good.
Well, and I think Brandon will be a lot better. Brandon, like,
he gets better every year.
yeah, he's known to improve. So I don't think Brandon is sitting there saying, "I'm Mr. Olympia. I don't need to do anything." I think Brandon is full in, all out, going to get better. So you're going to have a better Flex. You're going to have a better Brandon. So the question is, what will Phil do? And Phil's had that year off to kind of get hungry. So I think it's going to be a pretty epic top three. I mean,
It'll be I think so too. And it could be even a top four if Heidi is able to get over and get his
that's
visa.
going to be hard to pull off, though.
Especially now.
Yeah,
especially with everything going on now. But I think if he was able to, he would be up there without a doubt with those guys.
He was. I mean, you could have made a case for him winning last year. I mean, he looked really good. I certainly had him in at the worst second.
Yeah.
I liked him and Brandon both. I would have had Hottie. I think he got third. I would have had him in second.
Yeah, I think he did end up placing third. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the height. The height helps him. I mean, and then he can pull off the 212 and he can pull off the 230, and be, you know, almost similar and identical.
Yeah.
So for
Think
sure.
about, like, everybody was saying, oh, he should have won the 212 and he could have won that. And he probably would have. He definitely would have. But
Mhm.
think about the extra money he got from being in the Open. Like,
Right.
he made so much more money. That was a good decision for him financially.
Sure.
Like, he made a
And
lot more money getting third.
even though he didn't win, because even if he won the first place in 212, it
Yeah.
still wouldn't match where he was at right there. So, and then real quick before I get into the next question, how do you feel, like, what do you think is going to be with the industry now, since they added the whole wellness division with females? In my personal opinion, I think me personally, it's a good thing. I think there was a huge gap between bikini, and figure, where in my perception, bikini, I don't know how they judge the man. Like, I've been to
It's
so
why I
many
quit
shows.
judging. I
Yeah.
mean, I used to be a judge, and one of the reasons why I quit judging was, like, I don't understand how you judge these bikini girls. Like, if you looked at the score sheets, like, you'd have competitor number one would have a first, a third, a fifth, a sixth, a second. Competitor number two, a first, a fifth, a second, a seventh. Like, that's the way the entire score sheet looked. And I was just always like, I don't know how you judge. So what ends up happening is you just rely on the head judges, the way the head judge sets them up. Okay, this person's in the middle, these people right here.
Mhm.
So then you just fall in line and you judge the same. But when they very first started the division, I was just like, I don't even get how I'm supposed to judge. Like, there's no real criteria. Some of the girls were really, really skinny to an unhealthy look. And I personally didn't like that. I didn't like to see, like, ribs sticking out.
Hmm.
And then, so it was really hard to judge. And it just became, then the shows started dragging out. You would judge all day, literally all day for $50. And I was like, you know what? I think I'll pass on that.
I feel like the only difference after a certain point in bikini you see is just the hair color, because right, like, because
And
I
the
mean,
suit.
yeah, because it's I remember the first time. So I remember the first time my wife did her show. I had to do like the Northeasterns, which is a huge show in the Northeast, and she was doing bikini. So I told her specifically, I need you to have your hair curly. Do it not have your natural curly hair, but make it extra curly. So she was the only one on stage with curly hair out of the whole lineup. So I'm like, it's just going to bring the attention onto your
Yeah.
physique so you don't disappear. It's
Yeah.
not that it's saying that you're only going to win because your hair is different. It just brings the attention to it, to help out. But I again, I don't know. It's just, to me, when I see it, I'm just like, I don't know, like, I go nuts. And then when you have on the amateur side too, I think what the problem is kind of starts with the amateur side. And what I mean by this is, so you have bikini and figure, for example, and then let's just say you have bodybuilding and classic physique. Okay. On the amateur side, you can do both. You could do bikini and figure, you could do classic and physique. Depending on what show you do and what judge you get, you could do good in one or the other, or in both. So it's like, how do you help these competitors move in a correct direction, right? So they say if it's a girl and she's better in bikini than figure, but if she does good in figure this show and good in bikini, it's just like, okay, she's still going to be going down the middle. And it's kind of same thing with classic, in bodybuilding. Some people can do good, decent in a classic physique show, but they're maybe made to be bodybuilders. Like, maybe their symmetrics isn't going to continue in that same direction as a classic physique, and they're more to be, bigger and as a bodybuilder. So I think a lot of the opportunity is on that lower level for the criteria to be more strict and more descriptive on what direction to go. Because I mean, I remember when she was, like, for example, bikini, I remember when she was doing bikini shows, it's like, one show they were judging for more like the lean and shredded look for bikini, and another show they would judge for softer. So it's like a roll of a die. How do I come into the show? So I think it's pretty rough from that aspect. But anyway, on the wellness, I think wellness would kind of help out because it gives females a chance to build their legs, kind of go for the Centurion look.
Yeah.
But I think it's good because, I mean, it's huge. They don't even have bikini in South America. All they have is wellness and figure. And it's so
those are
crazy.
good looks too. Those
They
are
are
good looks.
I think I think they're amazing looks. And like, from a coaching perspective and training aspect. So like, a lot of those trainers from South America, for example, like for the wellness females, um, they have them training legs every day during a week. So in other
Yeah.
words, say if you're like a 4 or 5 day split,
Yeah.
each day there's a leg routine.
Yeah.
And then for the upper body, it's like a touch up. Like for example, like my
Right.
wife has a wellness coach, and she doesn't do chest, she doesn't do arms. She has like flies for the shoulders, and like another one exercise for back, and all the other 4 or 5 days are legs.
Yeah.
That's it. But
Yeah.
it's and like I remember when I seen it the first time, like this can't be right. Like what the hell is this? And
Yeah.
then as it kind of kept going, like in the last 8 months, her legs doubled in size. She's eating almost as much rice as me. I'm like, what is going on,
Yeah.
right? But she's not gaining the weight in the wrong areas. It's just literally just going
Yeah.
to the legs. So it's definitely neat because I remember when I was grew up with training, it was like work the one body part, don't touch it for such a long time and so forth. But I think again, it might vary for some people. Like if you're a power lifter, I mean, if you do or strength or strength, I think it's almost impossible to do that body part anytime soon because your central nervous system and you're so torn up. But if you're volume training, right, and if you're getting enough nutrition, it's a possibility where you can constantly keep working it and it keeps refilling and refilling and refilling. So it's definitely unique, but I'm actually excited for the whole wellness category.
Yeah. I think it'll be fun too. I've got a girl that I think she'll do really well. So I'm real excited about it.
Yeah, me too. So, and again, I just hope that the judges keep a straight like direction for them because it could go all over the place real quick too because they can get, just as long as the judges, keep it okay. The lower half has to be, muscle definition. It can't like because it's like a fine line when you go into like that fully shredded figure look versus the soft look and so forth. So, but I'm excited. I think it's a good addition to help the women out so they don't because again I think bikini. I mean, I've never met any bikini competitors, and I'm talking the ones who like fully were deep into the diet, where they looked like human beings 2 or 3 weeks out. Like they were like, you look like Darth
Yeah.
Vader, and they
Yeah.
look like Darth Vader's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's they definitely go through a suffering like crazy. So, but okay, so again, we talked about everything about you, John, how everything came about. When it comes to your line, because you have the supplement line called Granite, you have your training program. So John has a training program called it's based on Mountain Dog. It's mountaindog.com, right? On www.mountaindog.com.
MountainDogDiet.com.
Mountaindogdiet.com. So through there you can get John's program. What do you have, like 40, 50 different
Oh,
workout routines now?
well, I think I only have 25 or so on there, but I've actually wrote like 35 or 40.
Right.
But
So that's what I mean. So there's multiple training programs. And guys, what's unique about the training programs that John has is when you buy the training program, these things are like 60 to 80 pages in depth. So it's not like your typical, here's 5 day split, here's your
yeah,
reps,
yeah,
here's your sets, high five, give me the
yeah,
money, see you later.
no,
These things are literally by each week. There's changes within there. Within the exercises, each exercise is detailed. There's direct links you have to YouTube where you actually show the exercises. I've never it's hard to find such detail, and you also have diets and everything written into that. So that's amazing. And then you created Granite supplements. When did you feel like you needed to go into that direction also with the supplement line and also keep going forward? Because I know you're reformulating, you're doing a lot of different things with labeling and so forth.
yeah. I mean, 3.5 years ago is when we started, and I was involved with several companies in the past. Well, not a lot, a few as an athlete, and I just saw some things in the industry that I wasn't real pleased with in terms of
Mm-hmm.
quality and things of that nature. And I just said, I'm going to do this myself. I think I can do a pretty good job if I do it myself. And you've seen a lot of changes actually in the last year and a half. The last year and a half, we've done really, really well. We always had really good formulas. That was never an issue. But we redid our packaging. We did update some of our formulas. Um, all you have to do is go to our website, look at the formulas, and if you know supplements, you'll say, wow, these are very well
Yeah.
put together formulas.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things that's ongoing, and you're always trying to get better. You're always trying to do something that's, how can I make this better? How can I make that better? Like, that's what goes through my mind every week. It's, how do I improve? How does this improve? How do I make this better? It's a never ending quest to get better. Right. So, but yeah,
Mhm.
it's, I'm 3.5 years in now, and the brand's doing really, really well. Um, for me, the challenge was just getting people to try it. Like,
Yeah.
I spend money on the formulas, not so much the marketing. And a lot of companies, they don't really put much into formulas, but they put a
Put it
lot in
into
the
their
marketing.
marketing.
So
Yeah.
people hear about their products and they try them. And so people think like, oh, well, this must be what products are like. And then they'll try a product like mine and they'll be like, oh, wow, this is way better.
They
But
actually
until you
feel
get them
something. Yeah.
actually feel something, but until
Hmm.
you get them to try it, they don't really know. They're just
Correct.
used to the watered down formulas and, well, this is only $29.99. No, that one's $34. If you just spent the $5 and you saw the difference. And so now I think, Patrick, we're getting traction where people are actually trying everything now.
Hmm.
And that's creating a lot of buzz. And that's what I think is really, really helping us. We're coming off last month is the best month in our company's history, actually.
Awesome.
So we're trending the right way. We're trying to do right by customers, and we'll continue to do so. We're introducing new products, and we have another one coming out, a non-stem pump, probably within 4 weeks. We have a new flavor of
I
protein
heard
powder.
I heard a rumor that it's actually something new in there in a
Yeah,
pump
it's
formula.
it's a really, really good formula. It was very well thought out, and the strategy behind it. It's a kind of a 4-step strategy on
Hmm.
preparing your blood vessels to dilate, then giving them substrates to dilate, and then preventing them from closing back up. So it's an extremely well thought out formula that's very unique. And I don't think anybody,
Oh, so you continue to keep the blood flow, nutrition, and everything going into the area without, okay, gotcha,
yeah,
without restricting it halfway through or so forth.
right, without your body bringing everything back to
Hmm.
homeostasis. Yeah, there's a way
Hmm.
you can fight that. So it's going to be fun.
I'm excited. I'm a huge fan of any pump formulas that actually have ingredients in them and do
Yeah,
what they're supposed to do. So I'm actually looking forward to that. And then you touched on something very important that I always speak to. I speak about it when I speak to other individuals who have good companies, um, and I speak about it to customers, and it has to do with the quality of the supplements. What a lot of people don't realize is, the reality situation is supplements. The way they work is using a supplement, using a good supplement, not using a supplement. You can still get to your location. So in other words, if I need to get to work, I can still get to work walking, right? But it's going to take a very long time and certain things. I can get into, on a regular bike and go to work, or I can get into a high quality car. So the speed, the quality, and so forth is kind of the same way with supplements. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is a price, the price of a supplement dictates a majority of the time, and not all the time, majority of the time, the ingredients. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong, because I've seen some scary things on Amazon where these things are priced at like $70 and there is nothing in there whatsoever. And half the
yeah. The
ingredient,
nootropic formulas are a good example of that.
oh my God,
I know
it's
formulas, and I'm like, that's a $5 formula. They're selling for $70.
it's bad. It's bad.
Yeah,
So I always am huge on describing the ingredients, and a lot of times what people don't realize is we can even go further. And you touched on it before too, is manufacturing. You know, not every manufacturer does what they're supposed to do. You know, and it all comes down to the way companies take corners to make money. Right? Is the same way manufacturing companies can cut corners too. Because I see companies pop left and right. They'll scream they have this and this in there, and then next thing you know, they disappear. Well, they're kind of just running off things they're not supposed to, and they're disappearing is because maybe the first one was good, but the second one isn't there anymore.
yeah,
So that's why I'm a huge fan of Granite. I'm a huge fan of a lot of companies, that I put into the stores because I research all those things. I try the products myself, so forth. So I know how it's supposed to feel, what it's supposed to do. Plus, at the end of the day, if I'm speaking to just like you, okay, you create programs for individuals. you put your face behind your brand, behind what you do. Okay. The last thing, you're not doing it for profit. You're doing it because that's what you do. So you want people to reference it like, that's John. Like, that really works. This is what it's supposed to do. So I do the same aspect with the brand is, yes, I got this at the store there. This actually has the stuff in it. This is what it's going on. I went to the car and I know exactly what I bought and what I spent money on. Because I remember when I was younger and was buying supplements, man, I would walk out of the corporate store, sit in my car and be like, damn, what did I buy this for again? What was I supposed to do? Or even like, or other, there's other stores that are not even, that may not be corporate, but again, it goes back to the margin aspect, right? So you could be a company, you could put everything in marketing, cut back on all your ingredients. You have tons of flavoring. Like for example, like right now I keep seeing sponsored ads for a 64-inch jug that tells you every hour, gives you positive words, how you're doing a great job. So tons of marketing. That jug probably cost them like 5 cents after they manufacture millions. People are buying it for all this money. So that's all profit scheme. So there's a lot of different ways, and there's other stores that could do that too. I mean, if you go and see a supplement on a shelf and you research a supplement, it doesn't even have a website.
That's not a good sign.
That's not a very good sign at all.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing for when it comes to that. That's why, like I said, I'm a huge fan of Granite, and I'm really looking forward to your pump formula. Is there anything else you have coming out of there, or is it just that's like the one big thing that's popping
Well,
up?
that's next, and then we've been working hard on a vegan protein.
Okay.
And after that, we had a performance formula that we're doing for athletes that had a real novel ingredient, a really, really unique ingredient, but there's some issues with that ingredient. So I think we're going to have to delay that one. The vegan protein, we're putting a lot of work into. I don't want to just throw some pea protein in a jug and sell it. I mean, we're putting a lot of work into that. So we're probably 4 months away just because we're working so hard to make it really good.
Vegan protein is hard to hit. It's hard to get it good.
There's a way to do it, but it takes time. It takes a little money. So we're balancing all those things out. You can't have something so expensive and put you out of the price range, but I have no desire to just put out a generic product that everyone else is already doing. There's got to be something special about it, or I really have no interest in doing it. So I've got some ways to balance the amino acid profile, some ways to enhance the uptake of it. So we're doing some pretty cool things with it. When it's done, it's going to be really, really good.
I'm excited because the protein you have now, that caramel, are you bringing more flavors?
I'm super happy with it. Yeah,
the caramel's amazing.
With the protein we have now too.
Are you bringing any more flavors out? Because right now you have the vanilla chocolate.
We are. We got a peanut butter on its way. Yep.
There you go. I'm looking forward to it because I know the caramel's. That caramel is amazing. It really is. And it's such a clean protein.
My favorite.
Yeah, and it's usually hard to get a blend, especially a blend like yours, to get it so macro friendly. And that bad boy is perfect. Like it's on an ice, basically like it's on a level as if you just bought a basic isolate when it comes to like the macros on the back. So that's definitely huge. Okay, so I want to kind of touch base one more thing before we go into questions. When it comes into prep, when was probably your hardest prep? When you were after there's the years you did those 5 shows. How many shows did you do that year total?
6. The Arnold Classic and those 5 shows.
And those 5 shows. Was there any prep that you felt was? Because I know you're like a machine. Once you get into it, that's it. It just flows. Was there any prep where it was just, it just felt like it was just unbearable?
Yeah, the Arnold Classic prep. I knew going into that show, I was competing against a bunch of champions, people who had already won shows, multiple shows. So I knew for me to get a look, I would have to be something different. And at my height, I wasn't going to outsize people because I wouldn't be able to make weight. So the only way I figured I could get a look is to be just shredded out of my mind, beyond shredded to a level that just really freaked people out. The last 4 weeks of that diet, Patrick, I was on 1,600 calories a day, and it was brutal.
Wow.
Um, Very hard to stay awake. Just almost in a fog for a month straight, every single day.
Yeah.
Brutal. And I still barely made weight. And I achieved my look. If you dig up video or pictures, you'll see that I was the bone dry shredded dude on stage.
I have your picture on the wall, signed. So yeah, you were.
Yeah, I mean, it was also the only show. It was one of the best experiences I had bodybuilding. It was also one of the worst. It was the best from the perspective. It was my hometown. I had some family that could see me. The crowd went crazy for me, and it was a dream come true. The bad side was I've done over 70 contests, and I've never complained about one placing ever in my life.
Yeah.
That's the one show where anybody there will tell you that I got a hose job. Now, I don't sit around and cry about it. But if you look at the pictures, I mean, I'm standing beside the kid who had fifth, and he looks completely out of shape next to me. Anyways, I don't want to get negative on this.
No, but I
But
understand what you mean.
I absolutely killed myself to get into that condition. It didn't happen easy. It wasn't just, well, this is easy for John. It was not easy for John. It was hard. I had my body fat tested underwater at the High State University, and it was it's either 3.8 or 3.9 underwater. No, not calipers, underwater. Anybody can, I don't want to say anybody. It's believable for people to be 4 with calipers, but underwater, get under 4, that's not so easy. That was the lowest body fat they'd ever recorded at Ohio State University. That's what they told me when they did it.
Yeah, that's insane. I could just imagine, but you did it, man. I mean, that's at the end of the day, you got it done, and that's just the mentality too. Anybody else would probably just backed out and not even pushed through. I can't even imagine how it was like. When you walked into the gym, were you still foggy, or did everything just click on and you pounded the weights away and then went back to foggy land?
I went as hard as I could, and then I would run out of gas, man. And I would go as hard as I could, and then I could just feel myself just
falling down.
And I was like, half the time I was scared to drive home, because I was afraid I would just like fall asleep. I was so tired. Yeah. So,
but you know what? That's to everybody that's listening. That's when you know you're there. When you're at that point, a lot of it's hard to be happy when you're, and I'm talking when you're that low. But again, that's huge. Now, are you still thinking of possibly going back on stage, or is this going to kind of be it?
No, I'm retired for now.
Okay. Good. In a way that I want to make sure you're healthy. Because I know you just went through the scare with your family, and thank God everything was good. God willing, this was like your third time where you were really close. You were saying, John, I think through like a scare.
Yeah.
So
I've had a couple near death scares.
Yeah.
That were pretty frightening.
So I'm glad you're still here with us. Especially your family too, man. Because I know you have, I think you have 2 sons, right, John?
I have twin boys. They're 11. Yeah.
That's right, and they're the football athletes in your town. Because I remember you always talk about the football thing. How are they doing? Are they able to play right now?
We actually are playing here in town. This town, they are. We had practice from 6 to 8 every night this past week.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so right now it's on. We've got some procedures. We checked her temperature when they check in. I'm coaching actually, and we sanitize equipment, things like that. So we're very hopeful we're going to have a season.
All right, good. I'm happy for that, and I'm sure they're happy too. Okay, John. So I'll get into there was just a couple questions that I kind of pulled off. So one question, and I'll probably have to repeat them because sometimes the wordage is off. From a gentleman named Dean, he said, what's your prioritization look like during a year of training preparation for a show? So I assume he's asking, when you're getting ready for a show, how are you? Yeah, everything and going through that aspect.
For me, it was always prioritizing my back, because that was the body part that lagged. And then once I got to a certain point where I felt pretty equal, I almost turned my training into something much more instinctive. Like I literally trained the body part that felt the freshest. So whatever felt
Gotcha.
the best is what I would train. Now, if something didn't feel recovered, it didn't feel right, okay, I'm just not going to train it today. I'll train something else. And that approach actually worked really well for me.
Gotcha. So you didn't have a regular, this day I do this,
I mean,
this.
you do have that schedule, but you're not afraid to go off of it if something's not right.
Understand.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people are. Okay, gotcha. Another question was from a gentleman named Tommy. What do your actual workout routines? What are your actual workout routines like? I would say kind of touch base more on your particular type of training, because you're kind of, you're not like Dorian Yates, but very close to a certain degree.
Yeah. I mean, so basically, I have a philosophy where you kind of do lead up sets to a top set. And then on a top set, you just unleash. You just unleash. But there's a method behind it. So I'm picking an exercise that I want that, well, I would tell you to pick an exercise that you feel that you really connect with to start the body part. And then the next exercise is usually a compound movement, something where, you use impeccable form, but you're still using a good heavy basic movement, like a squat, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Then I move into more of the isolation stuff where we just light the muscle up and drive a lot of blood in there and load it up. Then I usually like to finish with a movement that creates a really hard stretch on a muscle. So once you've engorged it with blood and nutrients, then you put a really hard stretch on it, and that has a really good positive effect on hypertrophy as well. So there's like a sequence I like to go through
Yeah.
um, in terms of how you actually execute the workout.
And that makes a lot of sense. The first exercise, something you're comfortable because you get the blood flow going into the area. So you pump it ready for action. Then you have the compound heaviest movement, to do with strict form. Then you have an isolation to overload with blood. And then you have the movement to truly stretch the muscle out
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's so makes sense. Yeah,
yeah. It's a
definitely. And
really, really good. It's a real good formula. I think it's a real good structure. Yeah.
okay. Another gentleman named Redine. Uh, what accommodations did you make in a gym? Okay, so post heart attack, what accommodations did you make afterwards with food and training?
Um, so for training, I took 16 days off, and then I started working on my way back. And I worked my way back very carefully. So number one, I didn't do the Valsalva maneuver. So the Valsalva maneuver is when let's say you're doing a bench press, and you lower the bar down. Then when you drive it up, you hold your breath to produce force, and you drive it up.
Okay.
So I stopped doing the Valsalva maneuver initially in my training, so I didn't put a lot of pressure on my heart. I kept the weights light. What I did was I did the first week, I did 3 full body workouts. I did Monday, Wednesday, and Friday full body. I just one exercise for body part, nothing to failure. The second week, I did the same thing with a little bit more effort. The third week, I went to an upper lower split, Monday, Tuesday, upper lower, Thursday, Friday, upper lower, up the intensity a little bit. The fourth week, I did the same thing, upper lower, up the intensity a little bit. And then the fifth week, I went to more like a push pull leg type workout. And I continued to just up it a little bit. And then once I hit about another, I would say 4 weeks of that, I just pretty much back to normal. But it was very methodical. How I got back to that point was very methodical. It was planned increases. Like on the compound movements, I went up 10 pounds a week. Now you got to realize my starting point after the heart attack was way down. But I worked my way back up very carefully. Monitored everything that I could monitor. Diet wise, I didn't really change a whole lot because I pretty much only eat 3 small meals a day anyway, and they're very healthy. They didn't find any soft or hard plaques in my heart, so for someone to say my diet had something to do with it, they would just be misinformed. So I didn't really change a ton. What I did do is I added in some more honestly, I added in some more fruits and veggies. I got to be
Okay.
careful with veggies. They kind of upset my stomach, but it got me back to eating blueberries again and natural sources of vitamin C and things like that. Just for the antioxidants and things
Hmm.
like that. I had kind of gotten away from that. So it kind of brought me back to that. but still most on meals, low fat fish, 99% lean chicken, low fat, very low fat fish, salmon once or twice a week for the omega
Hmm.
3s, carbs, oatmeal, cream of rice, like nothing mind blowing, just like the normal healthy
Yeah,
foods.
gotcha. And because I know you're not a big eater originally as it
I'm
is
not a
now.
big eater at all. Yeah.
I'm still in shock how, listen, next time you're down, I got to take you back to that Spaniard restaurant to
Get some
get you
more
some more,
seafood. That was good.
get you some more seafood. And then this time I'll just tell them to put it in 2 different containers. So one you could take to go and the
Yeah.
other half you could eat there. All right. One more question. Gentleman named Couts. So he's a high school soccer player and also wants to do bodybuilding. He said, is that too much cardio? Um, I think in general, he just has the mentality that it's just so much cardio, he won't be able to grow, which I'm sure, it can be,
Yeah.
offset by nutrition, but you can kind of go ahead.
Well, it's going to make it tough, but if you love soccer, I would never tell you to quit that, man. You can bodybuild your whole life,
Hmm.
but if you're competitive at soccer, like stick with it. Try to go as far as you can with that. That said, it is a lot of running and it is a lot of caloric expenditure, particularly on a young man that probably has a fast metabolism. So, in order for you to gain muscle, you're going to have to really pound down the calories. That's just the way it is.
Hmm. I think, it could be used a little bit towards advantage too, because there's a few soccer players out there with some thick quads,
Oh yeah, and calves.
and
Yeah,
legs. Yeah, just
yeah,
overall, they're kind of like centurions, a
yeah,
little bit running around the field. But
yeah,
I think it could be beneficial to him if he. But again, it all comes down to the nutrition aspect, like you mentioned.
yeah,
I mean, it's kind of like whatever carbs you eat, maybe go times 10
yeah. You're going to burn
because
them
of
out.
because you're
Yeah.
burning out. So for sure. So that's kind of like the question part. There was something else I had a question. Okay, last question. This one's kind of for me. So to all the new athletes who are looking up to bodybuilders, who are looking up to, because now it seems like, okay, 10, 20 years ago, maybe 15, 10 years ago, all the new fitness enthusiasts were looking up to like the pros, right? What they see in magazines and some maybe on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a lot of the newer individuals are looking up to, I would say, social media enthusiasts. Kind of didn't accomplish anything other than social media. What would be your advice to those individuals starting out when it comes to just everything, like where to get their knowledge, their nutrition, their training, and so forth?
Well, I mean, the thing is I don't really get bogged down with a certain dogma. Like, I don't think you have to do things one certain way.
Hmm.
Like, I don't think you have to train like Dorian Yates or you have to train like Lee Haney or you have to train like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, you got to kind of find what really works for you. And the thing is it takes experimentation. So we're in a time frame now where everybody's looking at the latest study, which is a good thing, but a study shouldn't like dictate your entire philosophy without um, experimentation. A study might tell me one thing, but I might know, well, I did that, it didn't work. I did this
Right.
and it didn't work. So at the end of the day, experimentation and trying different things are going to give you the best information as to what will work for you. Maybe not what's going to work for your friends, but what'll work for you. So it's a combination of things, Patrick. So it's like trying to stay educated. What's the latest research saying? It's hard for
Mhm.
most people to even read a research article, though. Like, you can read it and you can read the conclusion, but if you look at how the study was set up, it might have nothing to do with you, the way you train, the way you eat. So you got to be careful about what you take as gospel.
Yeah.
What I do take as gospel is experimenting what's worked for you because it's actually worked for you. Imagine that. So,
Right.
people like they're afraid to do that. Well, I heard that this doesn't work. Well, have you tried it? No. Well, then how do you know it doesn't work, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
big on experimenting and being creative. And when something doesn't work, what do? You toss it. You don't do it. And here's the other thing. You find stuff that works for you for a while, and then it may not work for you after 6 months. You may have to change again.
Mm-hmm.
If you could just do the same stuff over and over, think of how easy that would be. All these people who started working out would all be monsters by now.
That's true.
But your body adapts, and you have to outsmart it. You have to be disciplined in your approach. And so, I would tell people, don't be afraid to experiment. Stay educated, but don't stay educated with science, but don't be a slave to science, is what I like to say. You got to combine science with your own experimentation. So now you gotta really pay attention to what you're doing, because if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, then how do you know really what's working?
Yeah.
So you gotta have a plan, and that's what I like about my training programs. It's a plan. Like you have a plan. You know what you're doing. If it doesn't work, then you know it didn't work for you, or maybe you didn't execute the plan right, or maybe you didn't eat right. So there's a lot of factors you have to juggle into figuring out what works for you. Yeah. So the guys who do the best are always going to be the guys who are the most disciplined, who know what they're eating, who know how they're training, they're resting, like they're covering everything. Those are the people who are always going to get the best results.
Yeah, I agree. And I think another thing, like what I notice is, I think the one thing that's you can't read about until you actually experience is the actual, I would say, not hard work, but more the level of intensity that's actually brought into the workouts themselves. It's frustrating to see, especially when I go to a lot of corporate gyms. It's frustrating to see like the younger generation. They have more intensity into their outfit and their phone, right? Than into actually the workout.
Yeah, and then they ask you if they're overtraining. Like, no.
Right,
no.
right. And then at the same time, those same individuals on their profile have, message me for coaching and nutrition. Yeah. So I think it's the intensity part, and again, I think a lot of that has to do, you won't really understand that until you're actually put through it. Through all the years, like, I trained with a lot of different individuals, and a lot of them have different intensities. And I'm so lucky to even have that chance, because if I never had that chance, I would kind of just, you would just kind of go through the motions. Right. And I think that's a lot of times, the discipline and the intensity, or without a doubt, probably the most important things. The discipline, I mean, it's insane. Like, people don't really realize, like, if you have 7 days in a week, if you have 5 meals a day, that's 35 meals. Well, if you mess up one thing each day, I mean, it's completely off. The discipline's completely done. If you decide to take the weekend off, it's completely done. And the way the body works is, unless your receptors in your body, just for everything in general, your genetics were one of those that don't react in a negative way, those things would throw you off. There's a huge, there's a lot of people, very small amount of people that, they can miss meals, they can have, various cheat meals and so forth, and their body doesn't react that much in a negative way. And it's still like, to the average person, it's like, man, that guy's ripped, that guy's jacked, right? But to us, when we break it down, we're like, yeah, he's got good arms and chest. There's no back. There's no calves. There's no hamstring. Like, we see it right away. And then, the thing is too, it's like some people, to a lot of people, it's like those things are beneficial, right? It's like, wow, I'm ahead of the game. But what you don't realize is, say you do have the genetic gift where your chest, or let's say your shoulders and your chest grows fast. Well, those things are going to overpower everything else. Like, if you're an individual, if there's usually a lot of times, like, when you see a male and he has huge arms, sometimes they usually have a small back, because their arms are so overpowering all their lat work, everything like that. Right. Same thing with like shoulders, right? Somebody might have huge shoulders and their chest.
A small chest.
So it's different ways of looking at it, but it's I wish everybody could train with you just once. It would be a completely different story. And even they don't even have to train with you, just to kind of bring you and drop you in a gym and watch you work out for like 10 minutes. It would be like an instant wake up for intensity, man. So, but that's everything from my side, John. Do you have anything from your side you want to bring up, man?
No, sir, man. I'm hungry. I got to go eat me some food, brother.
John, so again, thank you so much for
My
taking the
pleasure.
time. I'm so happy to be to have the opportunity to speak to you like this, and also present you to everybody as well, so people can see that legends like you are just like us. But at the end,
Absolutely.
the most important part is you're actually there to help. You're there to, you actually want to help people, and you do a lot. So for those who are listening, okay, if you're listening, you can get the whole Granite supplement line for 15% off if you mention John Rocks and is a legend in a store. So there you go. There's a discount for those who actually listen for
I like
Granite
that.
supplements, right? So you got to
I
listen,
like
and
that.
you know, but I won't even bring it up. So it's like a little secret hidden in there. Other than that, John, again, thank you so much, my friend. I wish you and your family all the best. Your sons, keep rocking them out in the football and smashing everybody over the place with the tackles. And John, thank you again, man. I'll reach out to you soon. And then hopefully once this all settles down, we can see each other again up here in Jersey. All right.
I'm looking forward to seeing you again, Patrick.
Thanks, John. God bless. Say same thing to you and your family, and have a great day.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, my friend.